You have this anti-system movement. What we are seeing is a revolution against the system. So fixing the present system is not enough. Now there is, of course, an anti-system which is called libertarianism, which means to tear down everything which creates some kind of influence of government into private lives. It's dismantling the system.
Ooh, that's right, Klaus. You're goddamn right. That's exactly what libertarianism is. It is a plan to tear down everything that is the government. This man actually understands what we're talking about. Who knew? This leads me into a really good point. Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. This is Clinton Russell. Look, when he's talking about this is like the arch nemesis, right? This is the guy that wants to have state power to address every single aspect, every issue in society and civilization in the world, all over. Big government. Big government working in tandem with big business. I'm sorry, my Klaus isn't on point today. It's better usually. But yeah, he wants to have them work in tandem with big business to control everything. And who does he view, who does he say explicitly is the antidote? His arch nemesis. Not Republicans, not conservatives, not Christian nationalists. Libertarianism. Klaus Schwab said so. Not me. Klaus. Satan himself. Food for thought. Something to really mull over. He's not saying, because I think he understands deeply that the broader conservative movement has already been co-opted. The Republicans, do you think he fears them? No. He does fear the libertarian-leaning conservatives and Republicans out there. That's clear. And this leads me perfectly into the point that I wanted to make. I had a tweet today from some conservative lunatic that said, libertarianism provides zero defense against cultural rot and ill-intentioned groups of the population sowing social degradation for their own benefit. So yeah, let's break this down. Libertarianism provides zero defense against cultural rot. Now, who has been in control for the past 100 years, since the beginning of the progressive era in the early 1900s in America? Well, it hasn't been the libertarians, has it? It has been handed off between the Republicans, the alleged conservatives, and the Democrats, back and forth, libertarians never having any say. And where have we gotten? We've gotten to this point where now libertarians are blamed for everything, right? And I'd like to point out really where the cultural rot comes from and why blaming libertarianism is foolhardy at best and retarded as all get out at worst, to put it bluntly. The reason your culture is rotting from underneath your feet has nothing to do with Ron Paul. Quite the contrary. Had you actually listened to him, we wouldn't be in this mess. But you didn't. You left him off. You called him a kook. You said no one would ever, blah, blah, blah. Right? So where did we end up? Well, we ended up $34 trillion in debt. We ended up with both parents having to work, both parents barely able to put food on the table or living paycheck to paycheck, most people if they're lucky. Was that libertarianism that got them there? Was that the feminist movement? Or, if you actually look at the root causes, does it stem from the advent of the Federal Reserve, the central bank, the printing press, the interest rate manipulation, the inflationary process? What came first? I think that's always a good way of diagnosing things, right? If you're trying to figure out correlation or causation, what came first? Did the feminist movement start? Is that the reason that so many women are in the workforce? And there's so few family units that are being started? Or was it that the Federal Reserve got its stranglehold on our economic system in 1913, and then the feminist movement came on? I mean, it started soon after in terms of voting, but it didn't really start in terms of the workforce until decades later. And I think there's a fair argument to be made that it was the inflationary pressure that largely drove women out from the motherhood role and into the workforce. There's also, corporations and governments working in tandem because they wanted to drive down labor costs. And if you get more workers, aka more supply, then that ultimately reduces prices. But it wasn't conservatives that prevented it. Not even close. And my contention would be that the conservatives continue to fail in conserving anything because they fail to identify the root causes of the problems that they rightfully lament. And this is a good example of it. It says, libertarianism provides zero defense against cultural rot. Okay, well, you've had political power, and the culture has rotted. Is your argument simply that because Democrats have grabbed power periodically and that's enough to defeat you? Because that's a pretty simplistic viewpoint, in my opinion. I think that the reality is that it's not just that Democrats have grabbed power here and there, you kind of hand it off like a baton, but rather your framework is flawed. You think that mandating some sort of Christian conservatism through the government is how you will get to the promised land. But if you actually reflect on it, if you take a step back and you drop your animosity towards the left and towards libertarianism, I think what you'd actually realize is that the state has zero incentive to ever foment a positive cultural framework. I mean, think about it. Why would they, right? Why would they want to uplift individuality and a belief in God or a belief in anything above the state? Of course they would not. But what do conservatives do by and large? 90+% of them send their kids to public schools. Every single year. Well, they go onto Facebook or Twitter or whatever and they just lament how atrocious the public school system is and how these Marxist teachers are indoctrinating their children. But it gets worse. They don't stop there. They then proceed to send their kids to 4 years of university where if they didn't get indoctrinated from the Marxist professors in elementary school or middle school or high school, well, you're damn right. We're going to give them another 4-year shot at it. Maybe 6. Maybe they'll get their master's. Or God forbid they get the PhD, in which case they are sure to come out the other end as a raging leftist lunatic. And then you turn around as your kid comes home on the holidays and he says, "Dad, you're racist. Capitalism is the problem. The founding of this nation is immoral. It should all be torn down." And your reaction to that is, "These damn libertarians, they got to my kid again." I mean, think about it. Think about what you're talking about. And what's very frustrating about this is that most conservatives, the good conservatives that I know, they argue fiercely in favor of personal responsibility. Do they not? My favorite libertarians do the same. Personal responsibility. That's what you talk about all the time. And God bless. I agree. But then when it comes to the downfall of your culture, when it comes to the downfall of your children and their minds and their education and their worldview, you turn around and you blame anyone but yourself. You don't take a second glance in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently? And the answer is quite obvious. If you were willing to do so, you'd have to acknowledge your own failures, and you don't want to. And I get that. It's human. No one likes to admit their failures, especially when it comes to parenting. But if you put your children through public school and they come out the other end some raging blue-haired leftist and they start to talk about how they need to remove portions of their anatomy, you can't then turn around and go, "These goddamn libertarians did it again." We had no political power. The only thing we've argued is diminish the power of the state, get to sound money, end the wars. Any of the best Republicans, all the conservatives that you usually espouse great favor towards, those are the same messages that they push. We're not the ones pushing sexual progressivism on your children. We're not. That's not us. It's certainly not me. But it is the public school system that does that by and large in the most formative years of your child's life. But you don't extract them from that indoctrination mill. No. The libertarians, god damn it. Ron Paul, how could he? It's an absurdity. And then oftentimes the extrapolation will be, it's because the libertarians stood by while gay marriage was being pushed. This utter canard. That because gay marriage became legal, everything just fell apart. I could not disagree more with this assessment. Protection of children has always been paramount amongst libertarians and every other political stripe that's not insane. So here's the solution. Sound money. Stop the printing press, stop the manipulation of the economy, stop the crony capitalist model, stop the endless wars, stop the inflationary pressure that forces both parents to go to work, stop giving so much power to this government and particularly these supranational organizations like the United Nations or the World Economic Forum or any of these guys. These are actual answers. These are answers that don't point a finger at you and say, how dare you? I did that for the first half of this, but that's not really what I'm attempting to do here. I'm trying to get through to you, to emphasize that there is a pathway forward. The pathway forward is not to try and harness the power of the biggest state in human history, which is what the American government is, but rather to diminish it, and in that void, fill it with the culture that you expect to see in the world. You will not wield the power of the state into some sort of Christian renaissance. It ain't gonna happen. You hear me? Not going to happen. If you don't believe me, just look at the military of this country. What would have been considered a bastion of conservative politics for the longest time. And you have the highest level United States generals all the way up that will espouse the most absurd variants of progressivism, where they will talk about how the recruitment crisis is predicated off of lies that are prohibitive towards LGBTQ plus AI LMNOP families. Think about how absurd that is. And at the highest level of the military, this is what they're pushing. You think because you're going to get, I don't know, Donald Trump in there, that it's going to completely reverse things? I have bad news for you. Donald Trump was the president of the United States just 3 years ago, and he did it for 4 entire years. And that didn't change one iota. I could argue that it's actually gotten significantly worse. Exponentially, perhaps. So, you're not going to reform this system into your preference of state-sanctioned Christian values. So the only answer, I know this makes you feel terrible, but the only answer is to embrace the libertarian outlook of diminishing state power and then practicing what you preach when it comes to personal responsibility. And instead of expecting the state to rear your child properly or expecting the state to get out of your way, rather diminish the state so that they can't be in your way, in which case you can actually address what ails your children and yourself and your community and your culture and your church and your family and your nation. That is the pathway forward. I want to rant even harder about how you had an opportunity to have Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012, and instead you went with motherfucking John McCain and Mitt Romney, which makes me feel as if perhaps you won't ever hear what I have to say. But I'm going to hope that in light of the tens of trillions of dollars of national debt that has been added since 2008, in light of the lockdowns of 2020 and the mandates and the endless wars and the proxy war against Russia and now the war that we're funding also between Israel and Palestine, I'm going to hope that in light of all that, on top of the sexual progressive agenda that's been forced, or foisted, I should say, upon your children, along with the racial divisiveness that has been pushed from the political establishment. I'm going to hope that over that 15-year period, you have seen the light. Or at least after listening to me today, you might reconsider that perhaps libertarianism is not what is destroying your nation, but rather could be part of the remedy, along with tremendous effort and personal responsibility. Something that no politician wants to ever say to any constituent. They never want to tell you, I'm going to get out of your way, but then it's on you. I'm not going to give you money. I'm not going to give you a solution to everything in your life, but rather I'm going to give you an opportunity by getting the fuck out of your face. That's the answer. It has always been the answer. It will always be the answer. And it is the answer right now. But we are running out of time. That's the truth. What's up, you beautiful people? As you know, I was not allowed to post here for the past 30 days. So unfortunately, because I covered a bunch of topics that I'm very concerned about, I had to put the full hour-length episode over on that right there. Where is it at? Point. Come on, Clint. Figure out. There. Right there. Go there. Search that. Search that, and then you can find the rest of the episode. While you're over there, since I post full-length everything, uncensored, unedited, I would really appreciate it if you'd sign up and subscribe to help me out. It would be great to have another platform by which I can reach you guys. I've put out all my episodes over there while I've been MIA here. I hope most of you have figured that out, but if not, that's where a bunch of episodes that you missed are at. And yeah. Sorry. Doing what I can to survive here. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will try and put full-length ones here as often as I possibly can, assuming that the content is permissible. I do my best. See you soon.
Welcome to Liberty Lockdown. Please scan your barcode. Your liberty ain't gone, but yeah, it's on hold. Where did it come from and where did it go?